skills. But just to begin, we want to say, well, I want to say, professionally and personally, we are thrilled you're here. Thank you for all this time.
I am too.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with kind of an easy one. Just this week, you surpassed Microsoft in market valuation.
Would have left. And I found these miraculous people, these great people, and I said, what? I tried to ask this as tactfully as I could, why are you still here? And, you know, a lot of them had this little phrase. They said, because I believe in 6 colors.
Yeah.
Which was the old 6-color Apple logo. And that was code for, because I love this, what this place stands for, or at least stood for. And that just made all of us want to work that much harder to have it survive and have those values survive and bring it back. You know?
So we want to spend most of this session talking about your thoughts from your really interesting position, because you know the conference is sort of about the juncture of technology and media, and you're sitting there, right, at that juncture in a lot of ways. I want to spend most of the session talking about where you think things are going in the future. But there have been some controversies lately that we want to ask you about. And I guess I'd start with Flash and your sort of war with Adobe. So you published a long, open letter, something like, what you call it, Thoughts on Flash or something like that. So you've clearly stated your case there. But even if, here's my question, even if everything you say in there is true about its inferiorities as technology and other things being available to replace it and already replacing it, is it really fair or the best thing for consumers who buy, say, an iPad or an iPhone to just be abrupt? In other words, if we're in a transition where there are better things than Flash, why be abrupt and cut off consumers?
Well, 2 things. Number one, I'll come back in a minute to what really happened there, because what you said isn't exactly logically correct. But Apple is a company that doesn't have the most resources of everybody in the world. And the way we've succeeded is by choosing what horses to ride really carefully, technically. We try to look for these technical vectors that have a future and that are headed up. And, you know, technology, different pieces of technology kind of go in cycles. They have their springs and summers and autumns, and then they, you know, go to the graveyard of technology. And so we try to pick things that are in their springs. And if you choose wisely, you can save yourself an enormous amount of work versus trying to do everything. And you can really put energy into making those new emerging technologies be great on your platform, rather than just okay because you're spreading yourself too thin. So we have a history of doing that. As an example, we went from the 5-inch floppy disk to the 3.5-inch floppy disk with the Mac.
Before other people, right?
We were the first to do that. We made the 3.5-inch floppy disk popular. Sony invented it, and we put it in the first products. And there were some good reasons we did that. We got rid of the floppy disk altogether in 1998 with the first iMac. We also got rid of these things called serial and parallel ports. And we were the first to adopt USB, even though Intel had invented it. We first saw it in mass on iMacs. And so we have gotten rid of things. We were one of the first to get rid of optical drives with the MacBook Air. And I think things are moving in that direction as well. And sometimes when we get rid of things like the floppy disk drive on the original iMac, people call us crazy.
Or at least premature, maybe.
No, they call us crazy.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes you just have to pick the things that look like they're going to be the right horses to ride going forward. And Flash looks like a technology that had its day, but is really is waning. And HTML5 looks like the technology that's really on the ascendancy right now. And to incorporate Flash into systems is a lot of work. There's no smartphone shipping with Flash on it now, as you know.
But you know that there will be.
Well, you know, there's going to have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and every 6 months, it gets updated. So I'm sure that eventually they will. And there's a lot of issues with that in terms of battery life, you know, security and other things. But more importantly, HTML5 is starting to emerge. You know, there's been an avalanche of people that have said, we're doing HTML5 video. And the video looks better, and it works better. You don't need a plug-in to run it. And so, while 75% of the video in the web may be in Flash, you know, 25% going to 50% very shortly is also available in HTML.
So do you say that to consumers? I mean,
Yeah, but
talking besides technology, it's
Oh,
consumers.
I think consumers outside of the Valley and our industry aren't having this issue.
Except when they pull up their iPad and they go to a web page and there's like a hole there where a video
Well,
would be.
you know,
They may not know what
there
Flash
are
is.
holes in some websites, but those holes are getting plugged real fast. You know, the holes that exist now are ads. So I that's the number one holes that are there.
What about the other community that I think is impacted by this, and that's developers? Because what I think a lot of the coverage of this Flash issue has overlooked is that, yes, Flash is a video container, and there are other video containers that actually have a very rising share, H.264 and native HTML5, but it's also a development environment, and there are entire websites, some of them quite beautiful, written on Flash
You know,
platform.
an even more popular development environment was HyperCard. We were okay to ask that.
It wasn't more popular than Flash,
Oh, in its day, sure was.
on your platform.
No. HyperCard was huge in its day because it was accessible to anybody. So I mean, you could be a HyperCard developer.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, but you know, we have over 200,000 apps on the App Store. So something must be going right in terms of attracting developers to our platform.
So your goal, just to finish this up, your ultimate goal is to get rid of Flash or just to move?
Well, see, our goal is really easy. We didn't start off to have a war with Flash or anything else. We just made a technical decision that we weren't going to put the energy into getting Flash on our platform. We told Adobe, if you ever have this thing running fast, come back and show us, which they never did. And but we think we're not going to use it. And that was it. And we shipped the iPhone, and it doesn't use Flash. And it wasn't until we shipped the iPad and it didn't use Flash that Adobe started to raise a stink about it. We didn't raise a stink about it. We never mentioned the word Adobe or Flash or anything else. We like Adobe. We have a lot of common customers with CS, you know, the Creative Suite software and things like that. So we weren't trying to have a fight. We just decided not to use one of their products in our platform. And so, you know, they started to say a lot of bad things about us in the press and this and that, and it went on for months. And that's why I wrote Thoughts on Flash, was because we were trying to be real professional about this and weren't talking to the press about it. We didn't think it was a matter for the press. And we finally just said, enough is enough. We're tired of these guys trashing us in the press over this. And so we wrote down the reasons why, technically, we didn't choose Flash. And they are just as true today as they were when we wrote it, as they were 6 months or a year before that.
And what would happen, just so this, I promise, we're going to move on to the next thing you don't want to talk about, but on this Flash thing, what would happen, I mean, you know, it's an open market, you do have competitors, particularly in the smartphone side, and you may have significant competitors in the tablet side. We have a couple of companies showing non-iPad tablets here this week.
This is America.
This is America. That's right. Well, it's LA, but it's. What if the market says, hey, you know, it's important enough to us to be able to run not just these videos, but whole websites. And there's a great photo editing site. I don't know if you've ever used it, called Picnic. It's a lovely site. It really works like a smooth, slick, native client on your computer. But it's written, it's a Flash site on the web. I mean, it probably uses other technologies too, but it doesn't work on the iPad. What do people say? You know, the iPad is crippled in this respect.
Well, well, I'd say two things. Number one, things are packages of emphasis. Some things are emphasized in a product, some things are not done as well in a product, some things are chosen not to be done at all in a product. And so different people make different choices. And if the market tells us we're making the wrong choices, we listen to the market. We're just people running this company. We're trying to make great products for people. And so we have at least the courage of our convictions to say, we don't think this is part of what makes a great product. We're going to leave it out. Some people are going to not like that. They're going to call us names. It's not going to be in certain companies' vested interests that we do that, but we're going to take the heat because we want to make the best product in the world for customers. And we're going to instead focus our energy on these technologies, which we think are in their ascendancy, and we think are going to be the right technologies for customers. And you know what? They're paying us to make those choices. That's what a lot of customers pay us to do, is to try to make the best products we can. And if we succeed, they'll buy them. And if we don't, they won't. And it'll all work itself out. So far, I have to say that people seem to be liking iPads. We've sold one every 3 seconds since we launched it. So I don't know how it's going to turn out.
3 whole seconds to sell one?
Right now, I'm just worried it's taking us 3 whole seconds to make one. We need to be selling them faster, it seems.
Obviously, you have shiner time opinions about this. You've been emailing a lot lately. This is riveting to a lot of people. I know it sounds silly outside of Silicon Valley, but a lot of people are riveted. What's happened in your communication style? Because you've been emailing people, you've been emailing people at the Valleywag and stuff.
Well, he never identified himself as a journalist, but I was working late one night. It actually was like 2 in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
And I was working on making a presentation next Monday, and I was working on that presentation. And this guy starts emailing me these obnoxious emails, and I'm just enough of a sucker that I want to straighten this guy's thinking out. So I start to, respond to him. He responds back. He's not, he's no dummy, and he's responding back, and we got in this conversation. It was kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
And then he publishes it. So,
Well, a lot of
that's okay.
are getting published.
But I know.
You just like to email now? What's happened?
But you are even just customers, not just that exchange. So they're very short a lot of times.
I've actually always done a bit of that.
Okay. All right. So you had a prototype of one of your products that was wound up in a bar and have you heard of, has this come to your attention? I don't know. I don't know whether lower levels are handling it, but and then there was a blog that paid somebody some money. We don't really know the whole story because the investigation, I guess, is underway with the police. But I wanted to ask you your reaction to sort of a duality about this, because I think there are people in the public and in journalism don't approve of somebody of sort of checkbook journalism, if you want to call it that. The way that was done, if what we know is true. And I want to keep stressing that because I don't know that we know the whole thing yet. But on the other hand, then the police go and they don't issue a subpoena which some of these lawyers could fight in court about take this guy's computers, but they go and get a search warrant and they grab it. And one presumes, and again I don't know, but I know if they took my computer, there's notes and things from many companies and many sources and stories and things that wouldn't necessarily be relevant for whatever the police are looking at. It was just like a giant grab of a journalist's sort of assets of all the background of what that guy was doing.
Or a guy's assets, at least.
Well,
You debate what a journalist is.
we can debate it, but I mean, we think bloggers are journalists, We run a blog, so we think bloggers are journalists. The New York Times runs blogs, the Wall Street Journal runs blogs. I don't think that's much of a debate anymore. But anyway, the point is, so where do people come down on this? What do you think?
Well, I can just tell you what, there is an ongoing investigation by the DA, and I'm not current on it, but I can tell you what I do know.
Okay.
One of our employees, to make a wireless product work well, you have to test it. And there's no way to test it in a lab completely, so you actually have to carry them and test them out. And one of our employees was carrying one, and there was a debate as to whether it was left in a bar or stolen out of his bag, but I don't know the answer to that. And the person that ended up with the phone decided they would try to sell it to somebody, so they called it Gadget, they called it Gizmodo. It turned out that the person that got the phone tried to activate it by plugging it into his roommate's computer, a woman. And she saw him evidently destroying some evidence, and she's the one that called the police. And that's why they got the search warrant.
She called the police, or she called Apple?
She called the police, and because she didn't want to get implicated. I'm just telling you what I've been told. And so the police came and felt that they needed to grab some stuff before it was all before it all disappeared. And so this is a story that's amazing. It's got theft. It's got buying stolen property. It's got extortion. I'm sure there's sex in there somewhere. So somebody should make a movie out of this.
Well, we got some movie producers.
And then, and it was reported that the police broke down somebody's door, which they, to my best of my knowledge, never did. And so it's just, this whole thing is very colorful, and the DA's investigating it, and to my knowledge, they have somebody from the courts that is making sure that they only see stuff that relates to this case and no other cases. I believe they're taking great pains to do that. And so I don't know where it will end up. It's really up to the DA.
So the last question before we get to really easy stuff like Google, and about platforms and bigger where things are going. Do you have any comments on what's going on at Foxconn because of all the press around?
Oh, sure, yeah. We're pretty on top of that. I actually think Apple does one of the best jobs of any companies in our industry, and maybe in any industry, of understanding the working conditions in our supply chain. We're extraordinarily diligent and extraordinarily transparent about it. You go on our website and read, our report that we publish once a year. And we go into these suppliers, and we go into their secondary and tertiary suppliers, places where nobody's ever gone before and audited them before, and we're pretty rigorous about it. So I can tell you a few things that we know, and we're all over this. Foxconn is not a sweatshop. When you go to this place, and it's a factory, but my gosh, I mean, they've got restaurants and movie theaters and hospitals and swimming pools, and I mean, for a factory, it's a pretty nice factory. But they've had, if you count the attempted suicides, 13 so far this year. And while that is still, they have 400,000 people at this place. So 13 out of 400,000 is 26 per year so far for 400,000 people, or let's say 7 per 100,000 people. That's still under the U.S. suicide rate of 11 per 100,000 people, but it's really troubling.
Right, it's in one place too. It's in one.
Well, by number of people.
Yeah.
By numbers of people. So we had this in my hometown of Palo Alto. We've had some copycat suicides where high school kids have committed suicide by throwing themselves in front of Amtrak, and it's very troubling. So we're over there trying to understand what's happening, and more importantly, trying to understand how we can help. Because it's a difficult situation. They've got a lot of workers who are leaving very poor rural areas, coming to these factories, away from home for the first time, 19 years old. They're probably less prepared to leave home than your typical high school student going to college in this country. And so I think there's some real issues there.
And you all are bringing in psychiatrists, or
we're trying to understand right now.
Okay.
Before we go in and say we know the solution, we need to understand what the problem is.
So you have teams of, what kind of folks do you send over? I mean, they have to be some kind of social workers, or what do you you send over there to find out? Or just lawyers or what?
No, not lawyers.
Okay.
We send over, first of all, our own people that have been going over there for a long time and are very familiar with them. And second, we've hired some outside folks as well.
Okay. So, let's talk about where things are headed. You spent a good chunk of your career fighting a platform war with Microsoft. In the PC, the ADA PC era, they won that platform war pretty decisively in terms of operating systems. The Mac is making a nice comeback, but I mean, basically they got a much huger share and they do dominate that platform. Now there are new platforms out there. You've done really well on some of them. The really advanced smartphones and now the beginnings of this tablet thing using the same OS. You have other platforms. You have Google, as a lot of people consider to be building multiple platforms. Android is forthcoming from OS, of course, the whole search ecosystem that they have, and their app ecosystem through the browser, everything through the browser, through search. And then the social graph, the social networks. Facebook is a platform, and it's very big, and it's very popular, and it runs into controversy. We have Mark coming, and we're going to talk to him about it. So, to Karen and I, there's a platform war going on that you're in. You're a big player in it. Google's a player in it. Facebook's a player in it. Do you see it like that?
No.
Okay.
And I never have. I mean, we never saw ourselves in a platform war with Microsoft. I mean, that's why we lost. We always saw ourselves trying to build the best computers we knew how to build. That's always what we were trying to do.
And you never thought about Windows or Microsoft?
Sure, we thought about Windows, but we never thought of ourselves in a platform war. We always thought about how can we build a much better product than them. And I think that's how we still think about it.
And how about Google? How do you think about it? Something has evolved and changed in the relationship between your company and Google, say, compared to the day you introduced the iPhone.
Sure.
Now. What has happened?
Well,
Where are you?
they decided to compete with us, and so they are.
And in what? In phones? In what? Operating systems?
In phones.
And how about PC operating systems with this Chrome?
Well, again, Chrome is not really baked yet, so we'll see.
So how do you,
And browsers? They're competing with you in a number of areas, right?
Well, browsers, I think we all contribute browsers to the mix, but IE still has the biggest share, and Mozilla and IE together dwarf what Google and us do together.
so talk a little about your
And as you know, I mean, Chrome is based on the work that we've done at Apple with WebKit.
Yeah.
So we took a tiny little open source project, and we created what's called WebKit out there.
Right.
And we did an interesting thing for Apple. We put it in open source.
That is an interesting thing.
It is.
for Apple.
We've done a fair amount of it, but this is the thing that's been the most successful. And almost every modern mobile browser is now based on WebKit. Google's and Android, Nokia's, RIM is coming out with one, Palm's, obviously as well as ours. And it's the heart of Safari, it's the heart of Chrome. And so WebKit has picked up substantial momentum. And now all websites are testing against it. Every mobile website, but even a ton of desktop websites now, because of Safari and Chrome being based on WebKit, are now testing against it. And it's turning out to have a lot of momentum. So although we enabled our competitors to have much better browsers in the mobile space, we've created a real competitor to IE in terms of
If you take all the WebKit stuff.
yes, if you take it all together, and in the mobile space, it's number one.
So let's get back to the relationship with Google. So the basic competition is on these smartphones and smartphone operating systems. How do you look at them as a competitor, and how do you feel about the changing relationship? Because it was, Eric was on your board, in a very close relationship. Can you talk about how you felt happened there, besides them competing?
Well, they decided to compete with us.
And
That's it.
That's it.
We didn't go into the search business.
Well, I want to ask you about that in a minute. But you woke up one morning and discovered they were going to compete.
Yeah.
Maybe call it.
No, you know, they started competing with us. Got more and more serious.
So how do you look at the competition now? How do you look at the differences between Android and what you're doing?
Well, right now, if you look at the smartphone market share, the way people define smartphones is a little funny, but Nokia is still #1.
Yeah, but